Hello, and welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar with Dr. Scott Saunders. We have a very special guest today, and that is you. Hi, I'm Leslie Prince, the host of today's webinar. Normally, these valuable webinars are only open to our members, but today we're sharing with our newcomers as we dig in and learn more about how to reverse type 2 diabetes.
All right, next question. What are the 2 to 3 most common mistakes that people make when they first start out on our diabetes reversal program that limits their early success?
Okay, the two biggest things I see are the artificial sweetener problem. People who look at labels and say, oh, this is a diabetic thing. And so because it's diabetic, that means it's good for me and I have diabetes, so it's okay. And it's got a lot of artificial sweeteners and a lot of fat and it's processed and it's not good for you. So that's one, artificial sweeteners. The other is not staying with the program. So if you're sort of implementing the program, it's not going to work very well. A lot of the people that say it failed, if I start asking them questions about, okay, did you count your carbohydrates? Well, I kind of got a picture. Do you know what? That doesn't work. It doesn't work. People don't remember what they ate yesterday. So people can't remember and they go, well, I didn't eat that many carbs. And it's because the brain will filter out a lot of things, especially if you're eating and doing something. You're reading a book and eating, then you remember the book and you don't remember what you ate or how much or what it was or whatever. So it's really easy to not do the program and think that you are. So actually count the carbohydrates and avoid artificial sweeteners. And those are the two biggest things.
Awesome. Okay. In the diabetes solution kit and phase 1, we'd recommend fat. Like, isn't fat bad for you, eating fat? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. Joe Barton here with Barton Publishing and Barton Nutrition, along with Dr. Scott Saunders. Hello, welcome, Dr. Saunders. How are you?
Hello. Hey,
Lovely
Joe.
to see you as well. And Leslie, as always, our fearless host and co-host and behind the scenes, making sure this all works well and gets questions answered and that it gets recorded and posted to Facebook and YouTube and all that good stuff. So, well, I'm excited today because we're going to do things a little bit differently. So usually we spend 20 minutes or so where Dr. Saunders teaches on a topic related to type 2 diabetes. Today, we are definitely going to be covering that as well, type 2. But what we're going to do is we've come up with a list of the 25 most popular questions that are asked on these webinars, because this is episode like number 170-ish, something like that. We've been recording these since August of 2019, back when I felt like, hey, I want to help people more. And this was what we did. We committed to doing a weekly webinar. So this webinar is really all for our customers of Barton Publishing and Barton Nutrition. And so this, we're going to refer to this today. It's the Diabetes Solution Kit. We've sold like 750,000 copies of this right here. And this is the 10th edition now. So we've been selling this for 12, 13 years. I don't even remember. But inside of this report, Dr. Saunders has put all of his brain into here when it comes to reversing type 2, as much as we could get out of it. And he still has an amazing brain. I don't know how that happened, but so what we're going to do today, we're going to do a quick overview of what's inside, like what we teach. We're going to do a quick disclaimer here in a second as well. And then we're going to just, after Dr. Saunders goes through explaining how to reverse type 2 naturally and get off medications, we're going to rapid fire through all the top questions that people have been asking us for the last 3 years. So With that, Dr. Saunders, you're really good at the disclaimer that we talk about. So if you could start us off with that.
Okay. So what we talk about here is for general use, for general information. And it may not apply to you specifically because I'm not talking to you as an individual. You may have a different issue. So when I'm talking to somebody about their type 2, it may not be the same as your type 2. They may have more insulin resistance or something different, like the way their lab values are different. So make sure that you take the information that you get here and see if it applies to you. And you may need professional help with that. You may need some tests done to say, oh yeah, that does apply to you, or no, that's not for you. So be sure that you apply the information that you get here properly.
All right. Well, I'm excited to get started here. So if you're watching us live right now or recorded, I encourage you to take out a paper and pen or get something to type notes on, because we're going to cover a lot of really good information right now. And I can almost guarantee you, like, if you follow the things that you learned today that we're going to be teaching you, and that's in this diabetes solution kit, which you can find. If you don't have this, I want to make sure you have a link for it. So you can get this at bartonpublishing.com, or we also have a link at bartonwebinar.com to make it easy for you. So write that down, bartonwebinar.com. And then also any purchases you make from us, we have a coupon code. It saves you 25% off. And that coupon is webinar25. So I just want to make sure you have that, because we're going to be covering a lot of different things today from this report. And so, Dr. Saunders, the first question on the list is really the basics. Like, what is it that we teach about how do you reverse type 2 diabetes using natural methods? What is the main program?
Okay, so our program isn't the only possible way of doing it. We've chosen a way of doing it that works for the majority of people and is easy to do. So one of the things that when we got together and we're looking at what can we do, we were looking, what's the simplest way? What's the easiest way? So all we do is a detox. That's the reversal part, is all you're doing is a simple detox. It's a cleanse. So all you need to do is in the book, when you follow the book, it's a 20-gram carbohydrate diet. We're not looking at, people ask, is this a ketogenic diet? Well, it's a lot like a ketogenic diet, but we're not following ketones. We're not even looking to see if you have ketones. That's not the issue. What we really want to do is make it as simple as possible that you that you detox your body from all the excess sugar, because all of your cells, when you have type 2, what it means is all of your cells are jam-packed with sugar. And so all you need to detox is to get that sugar out. And once you clean it out and cleanse all that extra sugar out, then everything starts working again. Then you get sensitive to insulin again, and that starts working. And then your liver starts working again. So we want to get everything working, and we just do a simple cleanse and detox. And the way we do that is with a 20-gram carbohydrate diet.
Yeah, that's really the main thing. So the 20 grams, it's 20 net carbs. So I think one of the questions, explain what the 20 net grams of carbohydrates is. Okay. So we have a lot of free foods that are in there. Like, you can have all the broccoli you want, you can have all the lettuce you want, you can have all the celery you want. And those are free foods. You don't even count them, even though they do have little bits of carbs in them, like avocados have a bit of carbs in them. But we're looking at net carbs. So even though an avocado has 10 grams of carbohydrate in it, that it's almost all, it's like 9.5 of those grams are fiber. Yeah. So the fiber doesn't count. So you look at the total carbohydrate, you subtract the fiber, and then all you have left is the sugar and starch. And it's the sugar and starch that you want only 20 grams of. Yeah. So fiber doesn't count. Okay. So we're going to talk about reading labels here. So I've got some keto nuggets, dark chocolate. Dr. Saunders, don't judge now. I don't recommend. So this is from Costco. It's a lower carb snack, and it's 4 net carbs per serving. So 4 grams of net carbs. So here's, if you look on the back, you're looking at this nutrition facts label. My camera's moving around. So you look at carbohydrates, which says, what does it say? 9 grams minus 3 grams of sugar. So now or 3 grams of fiber, excuse me. So now you're down to 6. And then below that is the sugar alcohols. So sugar alcohols, maybe you could talk about that quick. Technically, those are sweeteners that pass right through your digestive system, and they don't count as carbs in the whole net carb counting game. Now, we'll get into this a little bit more later on the call today about like sweeteners. So bite your tongue for a second, but that is how you count net carbs. So in this case, you take the 9 carbs minus 3 fibers minus 2 sugar alcohols, and you come up with the 4 grams of net carbs. And so if you eat 1 serving of this on a 20 gram per day, diet, phase 1, you're now down to 16 carbs left for the day that you can have without going over that amount. So the thing about this, like you said, is it's easy. It works for almost everybody. It's not, okay, it's simple, but it's not easy. Okay, it's not necessarily easy to stop eating carbohydrates for various reasons, habits, and even addiction to sugar or different things like that. But it's simple. Like, it's something like, okay, if I eat 20 grams or less of carbs, good things are going to happen. And that's what we've seen, testimonial after testimonial, people saying like, I dropped my carbs down to 20 grams. I started losing weight. My energy level skyrocketed. My blood sugar numbers improved. My doctor is like, what are you doing? This is working. So it's like, it works. And we've got thousands of testimonials, and they pour in all the time. So question number 2, Dr. Saunders, here's the one that we get asked a lot. Why is my blood sugar higher in the morning, but it goes down later in the day?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so there are a lot of factors that enter into what your blood sugar ends up to be. So the blood sugar is actually going up and down. It should stay within a range of like 70 to 90. It can go up to 100 right after a meal, but it should pretty much come down between 70 and 90 most of the time, if not all the time. So so then you're measuring your sugar, and you look at that in the morning when you wake up, you haven't been eating, your stomach's empty, right? Your blood sugar should be lower. Why would it be higher at that point? Well, part of the reason is because your blood sugar does drop low. And when it gets a little bit too low, like below 70, then your pancreas says, oh, the blood sugar is getting too low. And it shuts down the insulin and makes something called glucagon. And glucagon goes to your liver and says, make more sugar. So your liver's like putting out extra sugar. So then, and you're still insulin resistant, right? So then your blood sugar starts going up, and it doesn't just go up to 90, it keeps going up, and it could go 100, 120, depending on your insulin resistance, because then your pancreas starts putting out insulin, but it doesn't come right back down. So that the pancreas has to make more insulin. And so it bounces around a lot. Then you eat a meal, so your blood sugar goes up, and then your insulin goes way up and brings the blood sugar down lower, because the higher insulin brings the sugar down lower. So that explains why later on in the day, you're going to have a normal blood sugar or lower blood sugar and higher in the morning, even though you haven't eaten. So that's one explanation. There's actually much more involved in that, but that's the simple way to look at it, that don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. But nevertheless, the fasting blood sugar between 70 and 90, or between 4 and 5 if you're in Canada, that fasting blood sugar, you still want it in that range. So whether it's a little higher in the day, a little lower in the morning, that's not relevant.
Okay, excellent. Okay, fruits. So a lot of people love fruit, but the hard part is fruits quickly have high amounts of carbohydrates. So a common question, can I eat fruit? And if so, which fruits are good and which fruits should I avoid?
Absolutely, you should eat fruit. In fact, since doing a lot of research on the intestines, I'm a big fan of fiber. So you want a lot of fiber, and fruits have fiber. So what's a good way to get fiber and not get a bunch of sugar? Well, look at which fruits are available. So, for example, if you look at strawberries, raspberries, berries generally are relatively low in sugar and high in fiber. So you got to stay on your 20 grams. Don't go over the 20 grams. But yes, there are fruits you can add. Avocado is a great fruit to add. It doesn't add any sugar. In fact, it's a free food. You don't even have to count the carbs in an avocado. If you look at bell peppers are a great fruit to have, or peppers generally, and cucumbers. There are all kinds of fruits that are relatively low in sugar. And so just look it up. We have some in the book, but you can go online if there's fruits like, I don't see dragon fruit in the book. Okay, fine. Look it up and just look up nutrition facts and then put the name of the fruit in, apple. And you'll see how many carbs, how many net carbs, and you'll be able to subtract the fiber from it and get the net carbs. It's really easy. And then stay within your 20 grams.
Yeah, you listed off some fruits that I think a lot of people think of as vegetables, like peppers and avocado and different things like that. So you do have to be careful. And a lot of people, I think, just think like, well, it's a fruit, it's healthy for me. And the same can be said with fruit juice, like orange juice, for example. But this wasn't one of my questions, but it's something that we teach is like, orange juice is not good because that's actually what people drink in order to spike your blood sugar if you have low blood sugar, because it goes into your bloodstream so quick and there's so much sugar. So you got to be careful with that. So maybe list off 2 fruits that are the highest sugar content that people should definitely avoid.
Mango and pineapple.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the fruits, the tropical fruits, are pretty high in sugar. So even oranges are pretty high in sugar, but they're packed with sugar.
And make sure you eat the pulp, and like that's where the fiber is, right?
Right.
Like, yeah. Don't just squeeze out the juice, because then you're just getting the sugars. All right. Some people that do this program don't need to lose any weight. Like most people probably do need to lose weight because of the insulin resistance and the storage of fat. But there's some people that don't need to lose any weight and maybe even need to gain some weight. So what do you say to them?
Okay, so you still have insulin resistance. So if you don't need to lose weight, first you need to test. And your testing needs to be the C-peptide, that's the amount of insulin that your pancreas is putting out, and insulin level, and then blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C. So when you put those 4 tests together, you can see what your insulin resistance index is, and you can see if your pancreas is putting out enough insulin. Because if you don't need to lose weight, it may not be that you have this high insulin level that's causing your cells to be jam-packed. You might have not enough insulin. You might have type 1.5, which you're making a little bit of insulin, but it's not enough. In which case, some of you will need to actually take insulin. Some will do just fine on the program, and you'll just decrease the amount of carbohydrates. So then, if you're making enough insulin, but you don't want to lose weight and you're not obese, and you don't need to lose weight, you can still do the program. You have a bunch of free foods and you have a bunch of protein and fat that you can eat that you're not going to raise your blood sugar too much usually. And you're at the same time, you're not getting enough carbohydrates, so you'll train your body to burn fat. And that's the initial detox, is just training your body to burn fat.
Excellent. Okay, controversial topic alert. Tell us the pros and cons about artificial sweeteners and more natural sugar substitutes like stevia and monk fruit.
Okay, so now I've talked about this for several years. We've done this webinar, right? And I said, well, I suspect it's a problem. Now I've had 3 patients come in who have type 2 only because they're eating artificial sweeteners. So artificial sweeteners can cause type 2. And people who are sensitive to the taste of sweet will cause your pancreas to release insulin. And if your pancreas releases insulin, then you're going to get insulin resistance over time as that insulin increases. So one gentleman that I had, he was working out and he's like drinking his protein shakes and eating good food and having salads every day and doesn't eat any sugar. And he came up with insulin resistance type 2. And he's like, no way, that's not possible. Well, it turned out he was chewing gum all day, and it was sugar-free gum. It was one of those sugar alcohols. And so he, just the taste of sweet, even though it was sugar-free gum, he was still getting, he still ended up with type 2 just from the taste of sweet. Well, not just from, there were other things. His protein shake, of course, had processed protein and then artificial sweeteners in it. So it wasn't the only thing, but that constant supply of insulin over time made him insulin resistant. So yeah, avoid artificial sweeteners, just avoid them.
Okay. Leslie, I see we've had several people put questions in there. So if you see any good ones that you want to add to my list here, just go ahead and add that right underneath number 25 on the bottom of my sheet if you could, and I'll get to those later. All right. So next on the list, I think you already answered this. Can I drink diet soda? I think that's a quick one.
Yeah, clearly no. Don't drink diet soda. In fact, the research has shown that people gain more weight with diet soda than sugar soda. So you're better off drinking sugar soda, which you can't because a whole one is more than 20 grams of carbohydrates.
Right. Yeah. All right. Now, can I eat oatmeal in the morning?
Oatmeal is also a carbohydrate, so you have to remember that. So to make it easy, just stick to your 20-gram carbohydrate diet a day. So if that's all you're going to eat and you have a small amount of oatmeal and you got up to your 20 grams, and then you're only going to have a couple of olives later on in the evening, then that's fine, for one meal a day. But just remember, stick to the plan and stay with the 20 grams.
Yeah, that's, for any food you're wondering about, that's really it. Just do that nutrition facts, Google search, fill in the blank. Blueberries, can I eat that? Well, yeah, but you might only be able to eat like 6 of them. So you got to figure that out. So, all right, let's talk about fiber a little bit more. What role does fiber play in my health? Okay,
so if there are only 3 things that you need to avoid when you're eating, so avoid carbohydrates, avoid protein, and avoid fat.
What are we left with, Dr. Saunders? What are we left with?
All you have left is fiber. So the fiber, you can't get too much fiber. Okay, I have researched everything. And we have talked about the toxicity of water, how people are just pounding water and drinking too much. We've talked about the toxicity of sugar, the toxicity of proteins, the toxicity of fats, how fats make you resistant to insulin. But one thing I cannot find is any research that shows toxicity of any level of fiber. And they looked at people from indigent societies that just live on like hunter-gatherers. They're gathered, and they'll eat up to 100 grams of fiber a day, and there's no toxicity. They have 3 bowel movements a day, and they're perfect, and their intestines are perfect. There's no problem with it. In fact, it's one of those few things in this world where more is better. There's like everything has a toxicity. Not enough makes you is bad for you. Too much is bad for you, and there's an optimal amount. Fiber just keeps going up, and you keep improving the more fiber you get. So that's how important fiber is. Okay, well, now seems like a great time for me to plug one of our products, Fiber Greens. So we came up with this product actually more so for people with heart issues. Like, fiber is really important to have a high fiber diet if you have any sort of heart issues. But we wanted to create something that was low carbs. So this has got 1 gram net carbs. It tastes like green apple Jolly Ranchers.
It's got lots of fruits and vegetables in there, so the nutrients are in there and all the vitamins. There is a little bit of stevia and monk fruit sweeteners in it, but there's no artificial sweeteners. So you got to watch that. Like if you have, like Dr. Saunders said, like if you have that insulin sensitivity and that insulin resistance, you might want to like not have this or just either avoid or test it and see if you're going to get your insulin tested afterward. But this is a good option.
Wait till phase 2.
Yeah, wait till phase 2. Okay, so that's the next question. What is phase 2, and when can I switch from phase 1 to phase 2?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so phase 2, phase 1 we've already talked about. That's the cleanse. That's the detox. That's the 20-gram carbohydrates. So phase 2 is when you start adding things in because you've gotten your insulin resistance down. Your cells are no longer jam-packed with sugar, and so now you have a little leeway. So as you're working with phase 2, you're adding things in, and you're making the program individualized for yourself. This is my program now, because as you're adding things in, you're measuring your blood sugar, and you're going, oh my gosh, my blood sugar went up, and all I had was some pasta yesterday. Dang, I can't eat pasta. Okay, but maybe you tolerate like apples, for example, that have sugar in them and more than 20 grams of carbohydrates because they have fiber in them, and the fiber slows down the absorption, for example. So you're individualizing the program to yourself. It's the foods you like, the foods you eat, and do you tolerate them, and can you have that anymore? And that's phase 2. And when do you start phase 2? That was the next question.
Yep.
It's when your blood sugar, morning blood sugar, is consistently between 70 and 90. And consistently how long? I don't know, a week or 2 or 3.
Sure. Well, so that's all, part of this program, the Diabetes Solution Kit, phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3. You want to give a real quick, what is phase 3 and how do you transition to that?
So phase 3 is the most important part, because I had somebody in my office yesterday and she said, you know what, I've been dealing with this insulin resistance for years. I went to UCLA and did a diet program there, and that didn't work. I went to the clinic here and I did a doctor supervised program, and that didn't work. I lost weight, but I gained it all back really quickly. And I gained 20 pounds more each time. And she was so frustrated, she was in my office crying. And I said, look, this is the rest of your life. Phase 3 is the rest of your life. So I had her get the Diabetes Solution Kit, the book. And so she's going to go through the book and she's going to start on phase 1 until she's no longer insulin resistant, and then do phase 2 to individualize it for herself. And then phase 3 is the rest of your life. And that's, you're not going to gain it back because you're going to maintain that for the rest of your life. And that's the most important part.
And I mean, maybe to give people a little glimmer of hope, it's like you can actually have a little bit of ice cream every once in a while or cookies. It's really about watching, like, you do it, Dr. Saunders, you've admitted it. Confessional time, right? But like, hey, some people would rather die young and eat whatever they want than not. So like, no, we want you to live long and be able to eat some of the foods you like every once in a while, right? So
right, if you occasionally go off the wagon, that's not a problem.
And the good thing is really, like, you know what to do. Like if you do fall off and you splurge a little bit, like, don't beat yourself up over it too bad. Just fast the next day or Or what several of our people have come up with, and we didn't even include this in the book. It was the people that they did the program and they go into phase 3 and they said, oh yeah, and then Christmas came around and I just blew everything. And so I went back onto phase 1 for a couple of months, and now I'm back on the program again. So it makes it so easy because you can just go back to phase 1 anytime you want. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So this is a question that we've gotten into that I love your answer for because it's super important. What is more important, lowering blood sugar or lowering insulin?
Okay, so actually insulin. is more important. Your blood sugar is less important than insulin. Why? Well, because insulin is a hormone that has many effects on your body. When you're insulin resistant, certain tissues are not going to get sugar into them. And that includes your brain and your heart and your kidneys. And so they aren't going to function well. And so your nervous system is not going to function well if you're insulin resistant. There was a long time when I was in medical school 30 years ago, when doctors were saying, you know, they're scratching their heads going, it's really weird. We have these people with type 2 who already have neuropathy and already have kidney disease, and their blood sugars are normal. What the heck? So it turns out that the blood sugar is not the issue so much as the insulin level. So that's why I tell everybody on here, make sure you test your insulin level. Look at insulin, C-peptide, and then also the sugar in the hemoglobin A1C. So if you look at all of those, then you'll know where you are better than by testing your blood sugar.
So this is going to be a question a little bit later, but I saw somebody popped it up, and let's get to it. How do you test your insulin?
Okay, so it's a blood test, and it's just a simple blood test. The doctor orders it. You can get it online. You can get a kit sent to your house and get it. There's a Anywhere lab that will send it to you. There's most states you can walk into a lab and get tests done and just say, okay, I want insulin and C-peptide, that's C-peptide, P-E-P-T-I-D-E. And those are the two tests. The insulin level tells you what it is at that minute, because insulin only lasts like 10 minutes. It's really, really short acting. So it's gone quickly. But at that minute, that's what your insulin is. And, you know, so anyway, so then the C-peptide is more long acting. And even if you're injecting insulin, the C-peptide is only what's coming from your pancreas. So you can tell what your pancreas is doing, even if you're using insulin injections.
All right, this is great, man. I hope everyone's enjoying this. It's rapid fire. You'll be able to watch the replay on this as well. And if you don't already have a copy of that diabetes solution kit, go on over to bartonwebinar.com or bartonpublishing.com and make sure you get a copy. So you had already talked about the optimal numbers for blood sugar is that 70 to 90 range. What are the optimal numbers for insulin test results and also the C-peptide results? Okay,
insulin should be around 1 to 2. If you're getting over 3, 3.5, 4, that's in the high side. I had somebody the other day that was 7, and that's really high. And her insulin was 100. That's rare. I rarely see that. In fact, I've only had 2 cases over 130 years. So insulin should be around 5. And C-peptide should be around 1 or 2. Should be a little less than 1. If it's 0.8, that's okay. And then around 2, 2.5 up to 3.
And again, if those numbers are high when you get your test results back, like just do phase 1 of this program, and it's going to help it in that regard. And if it doesn't, like we might get into some of that. And again, like we've recorded 160 some of these webinars, and Dr. Saunders has answered thousands of questions. Literally. And so if we don't answer your question today, chances are you'll be able to find it on a previous recording. And there are some situations, you know, where you can do the program and it doesn't work for everyone, but like probably 98% of the time it does. And so we'll probably get to that in the question here as well. So you mentioned neuropathy. Could you just explain what neuropathy is and why does it happen?
Okay. Neuropathy means literally the nerves don't work. So it doesn't tell us why they don't work or what's wrong. It just says the nerves aren't working. So then we have diabetic neuropathy, which means the nerves don't work because of diabetes. So why is that? It's because there's a barrier we call the blood-brain barrier, but it's also found in the kidneys, nerve tissue. And that is sugar has to get across a membrane with proteins that are insulin-like proteins that bring it through, so that because sugar can't cross that barrier. So what happens is then when you have insulin resistance, and the more the insulin resistance, the more your cells, nerve cells especially, are starving. And because they're starving, they don't have enough energy. They start dying or start not working. So at first they just don't work. They kind of like go to sleep because they're just not working well. But if that persists for too long, they actually die, in which case you get numbness. And that's where you have the real issues of you can't feel when you have an infection, for example. And that's where people get amputations and all of that, because they just let it go so long that the nerves have died. So we have ways of waking up those by, first of all, phase one. So I don't want to say that there's any pill you can take to make it better. I want to say that do phase one, because you got to reduce the insulin resistance or else you're not going to do anything. And then the second thing is we have a supplement called Nervala, and it's just 2 ingredients. And so I've formulated everything so that we don't just like pound a million ingredients into something and say, here, this is for that. No, these are tested. These are both 2 things, the only 2 things that have been shown to reverse neuropathy. And we put them both together in the amounts that was used for the tests and for the research. And we've had a lot of people come on and volunteer. Hey, I started taking Nervala and my neuropathy's gone away. That is a wonderful thing to me, that it does work. My dad is taking it because my dad has that issue.
So here is Nervala. This is the product that Dr. Saunders was just talking about. It's got alpha lipoic acid and benfotiamine in it, which is a B1. And yeah, 1 or 2 of these a day, like you'll notice a drastic difference if you have neuropathy. I take it personally every once in a while if I have trouble sleeping or something. It just seems to like calm me down. And I think that's how it works, is it like cools down your nerves, which is pretty interesting. And so bartonnutrition.com is where you can get Nervala. And we're going to shift. A couple of our questions now are going to be focused on like medications and supplements as well, nutritional supplements. So Dr. Saunders, the first supplement that you formulated is called Synachroma. And if you could just talk about like why you created this and how it helps people.
Okay. So I have been looking, I do a lot of people with diabetes, right? I got a lot of patients who have diabetes, and I test them. And in testing, I find where their deficiencies are, where their problems are. I test their nutrients. I do what's called a NutriVal test. And so I say, okay, so according to this test, you're deficient in chromium, you're deficient in vanadium, you're deficient in B vitamins or whatever. And so I've been looking for a supplement. What's a good supplement for people that have type 2? Because I find most people are deficient in selenium, chromium, vanadium. They're minerals that are not easy to get in your diet. And even if you say like they say that onions, for example, have selenium. Well, onions only have selenium if they're grown in high selenium soils. So unfortunately, when research is done, it's done on different foods. And most of it was done in the 1950s when there was more selenium in the soil. Well, our soils are depleted now. We don't have selenium. You have no good source of selenium because we don't have any soils that have selenium to actually get it into the plant. The plants don't need it. So the farmers are not going to put it in the soil. So where are you going to get selenium? Well, if you can get some Brazil nuts that are grown in Western Brazil, where there's high selenium in the soil, then you're going to get a significant amount of selenium from those Brazil nuts. But if they're grown somewhere else, they may not have selenium in them. It just depends on how much is in the soil. Remember, the plant doesn't need the selenium. It just happens to be in the plant. If it's in the soil, it'll take it up and make selenomethionine, which is wonderful. Okay, so chromium is also difficult to get. Vanadium is also difficult to get. And I have found that most people I've tested who have type 2 are deficient in those. And then there's vitamin D. Vitamin D is essential for the insulin sensitivity. So what's the problem in type 2? Well, it's insulin resistance. You want more insulin sensitivity, and most people in the United States are deficient in vitamin D. We just don't get enough sunshine to get our vitamin D levels up. So, and we didn't just put a tiny amount of vitamin D, we put a full day's amount of vitamin D. So if you take 1, that will be an adequate amount. If you take 2, that will be on the high side amount. So you'll get between 5,000 and 10,000 units of vitamin D. Then we added vitamin K. Why? Because if you're taking vitamin D and you're absorbing all this calcium, what do you do with the calcium? It's just going to get deposited in your arteries. And studies have shown that happens if you don't have enough vitamin K. So vitamin K is also a common deficiency. Why? Because we don't eat soybean curd and fermented things very much. And we don't have a lot of dark green vegetables that have vitamin K1. So vitamin K is a common deficiency. So all I did was take the common deficiencies that will help people to use their blood sugar better. And that's what it is. That's all the supplement's for.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask you about some of our other supplements as well, but I think for the sake of time, we'll just point people to jot down and go visit bartonnutrition.com. And we've recorded videos with Dr. Saunders on almost all of those other products over there. So spend some time over there. And again, you can use a coupon code to save 25% if you use that webinar 25. So you mentioned vitamin D, so we're going to mark that one off. I just told you where you can order those supplements. There's a question on when to take the supplements, and I know that varies per supplement, but do you have a general recommendation for when to take supplements?
Most supplements should be taken with food. They're better absorbed with food. So we recommend Synachroma being taken in the morning with breakfast. Why? Because number one, it's better to eat breakfast. Number two, the cinnamon in it actually does make you make the insulin work better. So as you're eating and you're more insulin sensitive, then that'll allow you prevent your blood sugar from spiking too much. And that's just really what the cinnamon is for. The cinnamon is not the cure-all. It's not going to fix everything. It just like rounds out your spikes so that you don't have so much insulin resistance. So this is also to help bring down insulin resistance. So that's why you take it with a meal. So if you take Synachroma twice a day, some people, they start out, if they're getting off of certain medications, they'll start out taking it twice a day, in the morning with breakfast and in the evening with dinner.
Real quick, some people just like to skip past our store and go to Amazon and order, which most of our products are there, but just so you know, they are priced higher at Amazon. But if you want to do more research, read people's reviews, like there's a lot of that over at Amazon. But if you want to save some money, then just come back to bartonnutrition.com and buy it directly from us, and you'll save quite a bit. So, all right, let's talk about metformin and the medication that's most prescribed for people with type 2. So most people want to know, how quickly can I get off metformin and other medications?
Okay, work with your doctor as best you can. I know a lot of doctors don't know anything about this, and they don't understand about reversing diabetes. And so when in medical school, we're not taught ever about getting off of a medicine. We're only taught of, oh, you're going to take this for the rest of your life. And many of you probably heard that. Maybe the doctor, if you have high blood pressure, the doctor says, here, take this, you're going to take it for the rest of your life. And then, whatever they give you. Why? Because they wouldn't know how to get you off of it. So a lot of times you're going to have to educate your doctor. And when do I get off this? And so a lot of times you're doing the program. You're doing phase 1 and your blood sugar is coming down and down and down. So then you contact your doctor and you say, uh-oh, my blood sugar is below 100 consistently. And I'm really worried about hypoglycemia. Which medication should I stop first? And that's the best way to bring it up, because I'm worried about hypoglycemia. That's a big red flag to a doctor, right? So you've got to give the red flag and say, I'm really worried about this, and then ask the question, I need your advice. Which one should I get off first? And then the doctor's not going to know, but the doctor will just pick and choose. She'll say, get rid of that one first, or get rid of metformin first, or whatever, and that's okay. So the ones that cause you to secrete more insulin, like the glyburide and glipizide or the incretins, all of those are the ones that you probably should get off first, as a rule. Metformin's kind of, you could get that off of that last.
Great advice. All right. Can I take supplements while on medications?
Absolutely. In fact, things like Synachroma, all they do is replace what you might be missing to allow you to have better insulin sensitivity. So they may actually help the medications work better, because most of the medications cause you to make more insulin. And if you're more sensitive to insulin, then you won't need to make as much insulin, and the medication will work better.
Yeah, you've explained it, how like most of these supplements are really just like adding more food to your diet, but it's only the supplement, the vitamin, mineral, nutrient part that, you can have, like, you really can't overdose on or anything like that. Now, there are a couple like herbs that potentially could have some contraindications, or whatever that word is, that you might want to check with your doctor on. But for the most part, like, all of these are just like, yeah, there's vitamins and minerals, and you can have it with your medications. But of course, disclaimer wise, make sure you're talking to your own healthcare practitioner, because they know your personal history better than we do, obviously. Okay, so now this is a fun one. I love the 610 reset. What is the 610 reset? How does it work? Why is it so great?
Okay, I recommend everybody go on to the webinar where we spent a whole hour on the 610 reset, but briefly, I'm going to give you the concept. And that is, we have a metabolism in our body that's on a circadian rhythm. And during the day, we have a catabolic metabolism, and at night, we have an anabolic metabolism. The catabolic metabolism during the day is when we're eating and doing stuff, and we're getting hot, and we're causing damage to our tissues. We're working out, and as we're building muscles, we're actually tearing muscle fibers. And as we're running, we're actually breaking bones. We're making microfractures in our bones. And so that's the tearing down part. And that's always going to happen. You can't avoid stress. Stress is really important. If you do avoid stress, then you're going to waste away. If you don't stress your brain's not going to grow. If you don't stress your muscles aren't going to grow. You need stress. But that also breaks down your body. So we have an amazing ability to rebuild and repair that body. And so the problem as people age is not that I'm getting old, it's just because I'm old. No, the problem is you're not anabolic, you're not rebuilding. You're only in the breaking down phase, and you're never in the rebuilding phase. So the 610 reset is all about getting into the rebuilding phase. How do I rebuild my body every night and repair those microfractures in the bones so they're stronger than they were before, so they don't break again? And those muscles are going to rebuild and repair stronger than they were, so that they don't tear again. And that's the anabolic phase. And the way that works is really super simple. There's only 3 rules. We call it the 610 reset because you stop eating by 6 o'clock, no food or drink, because the stomach works on anything inside it. So as long as the stomach's empty, it makes a hormone called ghrelin. If you put water or anything in your stomach and it distends, it stops making ghrelin. And that's what you need. That's the growth hormone releasing hormone. So no food after 6, no food or drink or anything after 6, and then go to bed by 10 o'clock. Why 10 o'clock? Because at 10 o'clock, the cortisol level, which is that catabolic hormone that you release in the morning, goes down to practically 0. It's like nothing. at 10 o'clock at night. And that's when your pituitary gland releases the human growth hormone that initiates all of this repair and cleanse and detox and replacing all of the bad stuff and taking out the bad cells. Everything good happens during the anabolic phase. That's what really prevents aging. And you can't be anabolic all the time. You have to actually do something and be catabolic part of the time, but you get to repair it. So no food after 6, go to bed by 10. And rule number 3, we don't include on that, and that is eat breakfast by 8 o'clock in the morning. That's what initiates that circadian rhythm. So those are the 3 rules.
All right. So related to that, a question, how do I take my supplements in the evening if I'm supposed to have an empty stomach or if I'm fasting?
Good question. Take your supplements a little earlier. If you're taking things like melatonin to sleep, I do recommend melatonin to sleep if you're having any sleep issues, but clearly you can take melatonin an hour before. That's not a problem. So the rule is not really nothing after 6. That's the guideline. The rule is an empty stomach when you go to bed. That's what you need, is that stomach completely empty when you go to bed. So if you have a little bit of water or and take your pills like some melatonin and magnesium. A lot of people take magnesium before bed. And you take that with a little bit of water an hour before you go to bed. There's no problem with that. That's not going to be an issue.
Internally on the Barton team, we've had a handful of people that have been trying to implement the low carb and the 6-10 reset this month. And I got to say, it works for sure. Like, it works, but it's not easy. And, there's times when, it's just not practical that you can go to sleep at 10 or have an empty stomach at 10. So again, don't beat yourself up over it, but practice it as much as you can, and you'll definitely see the benefits. All right, next question. What are the 2 to 3 most common mistakes that people make when they first start out on our diabetes reversal program that limits their early success?
Okay, the 2 biggest things I see are the artificial sweetener problem. People who look at labels and say, oh, this is a diabetic thing. And so because it's diabetic, that means it's good for me, and I have diabetes, so it's okay. And it's got a lot of artificial sweeteners and a lot of fat, and it's processed, and it's not good for you. So that's one, artificial sweeteners. The other is not staying with the program. So if you're sort of implementing the program, it's not going to work very well. A lot of the people that say it failed, if I start asking them questions about, okay, did you count your carbohydrates? Well, I kind of got a picture. Do you know what? That doesn't work. It doesn't work. People don't remember what they ate yesterday. So people can't remember, and they go, well, I didn't eat that many carbs. And it's because the brain will filter out a lot of things, especially if you're eating and doing something. You're reading a book and eating, then you remember the book and you don't remember what you ate or how much or what it was or whatever. So it's really easy to not do the program and think that you are. So actually count the carbohydrates and avoid artificial sweeteners. And those are the 2 biggest things.
Awesome. Okay. In the diabetes solution kit and phase 1, we recommend fat. Like, isn't fat bad for you, eating fat?
Yeah. Remember, there's only 3 things you need to avoid: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So fat by itself definitely is not bad for you. There is plenty of research to show that fat is good for you, and the body does very well burning fat. And people who live on ketogenic diets can live, all their lives without any problem, using mostly fat for energy. The problem comes in when you mix fat and carbohydrate. They should not be mixed. So you either have fat or you have carbohydrate, and there's a lot of research to show that actually works. So many years ago, 30 years ago, they did research on the difference between the Dean Ornish diet, which was no fat diet, and the Atkins diet, which is a high fat diet. So the people with Atkins, they're eating their what I always say, the bacon, sausage, cheese, omelet with drinking cream in the morning. And the people on the Dean Ornish diet are eating just raw fruits and vegetables. And they're like totally opposite. You know what? They both worked. They both got rid of diabetes. They both lost weight. They both did well. So it's not that one is better than the other. It's we chose this because it was the easiest for people to follow. And yes, it's going to have higher fat, but I don't recommend eating more fat. Actually, I recommend eating more free foods. Eat the broccoli, eat the lettuce, have the salads. Sure, have a salmon salad and have a little bit of salmon with your salad. And that's okay. You don't have to gorge yourself on fat just because you're not eating carbs. You can still have good food. You can have avocados. You can make your own guacamole and put it on your salad. And and yes, that's fat, but there's a lot of fiber involved in that too. So increase your fiber and not fat. That's what I would recommend.
All right, I think we're going to have time for 2 more questions here, maybe 3. So when is the best time to test blood sugar?
Okay, so here's what I recommend. Get a CGM, continuous glucose monitor. These things are amazing and they're wonderful. And no, they're not accurate, but they give you a picture of what's going on. It's like, but they're not perfect. No, they're not perfect, but they give you a graph. People come into me with their phones and they got the graph on their phones and I go, okay, what happened here? Oh yeah, I just had 1 cookie. That's all I had. The CGMs are just wonderful. So if you can get one of those, yesterday somebody came in, she doesn't have diabetes, but she's got pre-diabetes. So her insurance is not going to cover a CGM. So we looked it up. It's $1,200. I don't know if you could get them cheaper, but the one I looked at, the Dexcom 6, was $1,200. And then you got to buy the pads, what are they called? Anyway, you got to buy the pads that you have to stick onto your skin, and those are like $85 for a month's supply because they last 10 days and you get 3 of them for like $85. Yeah. So it can turn out to be a lot of money, and that would be fun. The other glucose monitors where you stick your finger, they're super cheap. Like $50 and you can get a full month's supply, and then you get your it's really the test strips that get you on those monitors. But okay, so if you're using a monitor, the best time, I would do it before meals, because that way you can see what your blood sugar is before you eat anything. If you test after your meal, it's always going to go up because you have insulin resistance. And then in the morning fasting, the fasting morning blood sugar is the most important. So if you only test once a day, that's the one to do. And you want that between 70 and 90 consistently before you go into phase 2.
So many times as you're answering questions, I want to ask follow-up questions and dive into this stuff, but then I remember, okay, we got to get through 25 because that's what we committed to. And I think we got 1 left to hit that. But so much good information. You've covered all of this before on prior webinars. And so, if any of these are piquing your interest, just go spend some time on our YouTube channel, Barton Webinar, and you'll get to hear hundreds of more hours of Dr. Saunders, which is, truly amazing. And it's a gift that we're able to share him and his time and his knowledge. And so we're gonna have 1 last question. Leslie, I'm going to let you ask it. I told you earlier I was going to let you ask a bunch of these, and here I am letting you with the last one. Sorry about that. But close us out with Dr. Saunders so we can honor his time. What's the last question?
This got asked quite a few times on this webinar, actually. So can I still drink alcohol?
Good question. Count it in your carbohydrates. And if you have a small amount of alcohol occasionally, it's not an issue. The rule is 20 grams of carbohydrates, and so count alcohol as a carbohydrate. And the recommendation I would say is just avoid it while you're on phase 1. And then when you go to phase 2, you can look at it and see how it affects you. But it does raise blood sugar, it does raise insulin, and it has more effects on the liver. And so you remember, phase 1 is a detox. So you really want to detox, and alcohol is toxic. So that's not compatible with your detox.
And alcohol also makes you make poor decisions sometimes, which can lead to bad food choices. I've noticed that myself. Like, yeah, this isn't that big a deal, you know. But no, I agree with Dr. Saunders there. So, well, Dr. Saunders, thank you so much. This has been probably my favorite one. All like just amazing stuff, and it just goes to show how great this webinar has been for people. So, God bless you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Leslie, we'll stay on. I kind of want to read through some of these other questions, and we'll let people, we're going to try to get through a few more of these questions, because Leslie and I have been on, well, she's been on almost every single one of these webinars. So she's a wealth of knowledge answering a lot of these questions as well. So as a little bonus round here, Leslie, if you want to just go through some of these, if there's any that you can answer or you think I could answer, let's rapid fire through those.
Sounds good. How do I find a doctor like Dr. Saunders for myself? This comes up sometimes. The best option, I think Dr. Saunders would say, would be to Google functional medicine doctors in your area. And they're starting to pop up all over. So that would be your best option. I think if you are local to Dr. Saunders, you can call his office as well. Which I think
yeah, it's far between now. Yeah, it's harder for him to take any new patients just because he's in demand. And yeah, but I mean, it wouldn't hurt to try if you're local. So yeah.
How does anesthesia affect my blood sugar? It does affect it. And so I actually had an email about this earlier too. So I don't know the specifics of it, but it will affect it. I do know that. It probably doesn't help a whole lot. Oh, guys, this is a really good question. What role does stress play in my health? And I'm just going to tell you, we have done so many webinars on stress. It plays a very big part, a very big part. In fact, he'll tell stories about people who just were not getting better. They're type 2. They were doing all the right things. The story of, I think a woman's daughter lived with her or something like that. And once she moved out, instantly, all of her symptoms went away, but it was just, there was so much stress in that relationship. And so go check out those webinars where he talks about stress, because it was huge. In fact, I think he would say it's the #1 contributor to your health.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
I've seen quite a few people ask like, hey, can I work with Dr. Saunders directly? And I think one thing we sometimes forget to tell people about is like home cures that work. So Leslie, if you could put that in the chat, a link to that, it's just homecuresthatwork.com. But that is our membership site. Every month we've been publishing a brand new issue, and Dr. Saunders has written a 4 to 6 page article every single month covering all sorts of different topics, getting into depth on all of these types of diabetes related issues, but covering heart disease, brain health, thyroid, vision, you name it, he's covered it. Like ever since January 2009, we've had however many months that is, probably, close to 200. I don't know. What is it? Someone do the math. 12 times 14. So maybe not quite that much, but 150 some articles. And so if you want more of Dr. Saunders' brain and help in your life, become a member of homecuresthatwork.com. And you can just read all of what he's written. He spends so much time researching, and then he shares his findings with us in Home Cures That Work. It's the only place you can find it. It's an amazing resource. We use it all the time as team members in our family. I mean, you name it, it's in there. So that's kind of like this secret, hidden, valuable resource that we don't talk about enough, but highly recommend Home Cures That Work.
I think we talked about how to count carbs already. But just to review that, you take the number of carbs minus the fiber, and that'll give you your net carbs. And so in phase 1, you're counting, you only want 20 carbs. I saw some people asking, so can I still have bread? You got to count the carbs. Regular bread, that'll probably give you your carbs for the whole day. So just really be conscious about what you are eating, what you're putting in your mouth. Honestly, the best thing you can do is hold your diabetes solution kit, pull out some blank pages or write on the back of something, whatever you want to do, and just keep track of what you're eating for the day. I actually have a separate notebook where I do that. So you might be surprised. You're going to learn a lot about yourself when you track your food. So
yeah,
but it's super easy.
Yeah, there's apps too you can download for your phone that you can log every single piece of food that you put in your mouth, and it will tell you what the carb count is, and that's a really good way. I personally don't use that, but I know a lot of people that do, and it works really well, and it gives you a really clear picture. And a lot of times you realize like, oh man, that's more carbs than I thought I had. So it's really good. Yeah, whether you're keeping track, pen and paper, and Googling every single thing or looking at the nutrition label, making sure you're eating according to the serving sizes, or just using that app. That's the best way to track and count your carbs.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, what if my blood sugar gets too low? I don't know if I should comment on that really. I know Dr. Saunders will say it's okay for a little bit for that to happen, but he would have to talk about that more in depth.
He's talked about diabetes type 1.5, which is where you're insulin resistant, but you're also not producing insulin. And that's when your blood sugar, well, it can spike from high to low. But yeah, I would say just go find one of our other webinars where we've talked about hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. A lot of times it's because you're on a medication, and then in combination with like, if your body is normal and doesn't have a blood sugar issue, and then you add like diabetic medications to it, then your blood sugar could go too low. So it's probably something you need to work with your doctor on to get off that medication. Just tell them like, hey, I've been making changes to my diet. I'm eating low carb. I'm taking some supplements like Synachroma. Show it to them, bring the book into them and say like, hey, can I get off like my metformin or get, lower the amount? And they should want to work with you, and they
should be happy for you.
Oh yeah, they should be like, great job, like keep doing that, and like, yeah, we're gonna either take you off this or greatly reduce it and continue to monitor. So
how much does exercise play a role, and what is the best kind? And Dr. Saunders is going to say the kind that you will do, that's the best one. And he does talk about that quite a bit. In fact, we've done quite a few webinars talking about exercise, anything to get your heart pumping. And, he also talks about weight training and all of that kind of stuff. But honestly, anything you can do is great. If you aren't able to do a lot, maybe you can sit in a chair and just, get some movement however you can. He talks about, there's a name for it. What is the leg lifts?
Oh yeah. I don't know.
I don't know what that is, but kind of works your calves while you're sitting there, even while you're sitting, like right now I'm doing it, is really good for you. So there are things that you can be doing. He says, yes, it is important.
Yeah.
That paired with good eating is good.
Yeah. The reason it works is, like he said, we're toxic. We have too much. And a lot of it is we have too much built up energy inside of our cells or our blood. And so if you're exercising, you're like burning up that energy and getting rid of it, which is great. So in combination with lowering the amount of energy you're taking in from sugar and then burning it with exercise. And yeah, that high intensity interval training. We actually have some free videos that our friend Mariah created, and I think it's called Movement with Mariah on our YouTube channel. Feel free to use those workouts every day. Like you can go through a new one a day for several weeks, and they're fun. They keep you moving. They're short. They're only like 10 minutes long. Gets your blood flowing. They're also like moderate, like you don't have to be overly in shape in order to do those. So that's a great way to add some exercise if you're having any trouble with that. And like if you have issues like with your legs and you can't move very well, because I mean we have people that have amputations, and like there's other ways to move, like move your arms, move your body, just whatever it takes. And you'll just feel better. It creates endorphins. And so there's so many benefits to exercise. All right. One or two more, Leslie?
I think that's it for those.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
fantastic.
good.
we had 87 people stay on with us, man. But we got up to like, I think close to 120 people today, which might be a record, which is fantastic. Yep. So, well, we're going to be sharing this with our team and our customer support. This video is probably going to turn into something that people will watch early on when they become customers of the Diabetes Solution Kit. So if that's you, welcome to Barton Publishing, Barton Nutrition. Blessed to have you part of our company and what we do. Like this is what we love to do. Like our mission is to deliver hope and healing. And we're focusing specifically on type 2 diabetes because it's such an epidemic in our country, in our world. But we have the answers and we want to share that with you. And I want to just close out by giving glory to God, who really has been the one that's allowed us to share this information with you, to work with Dr. Saunders, to help hundreds of thousands of people on this journey. We pray for you guys all the time. Like we have weekly prayer calls. We have an intercessor that's praying for us and for you all the time. We know that you guys are struggling with these health issues, and we believe God wants you to live your best life. And we're here to help you with that. And you can do it. Like it's possible. We see it all the time. So we are encouraged to hear your stories. We love it when you share your testimonials with us. If you wanted to share that on social media, if you want to send us an email, either to customer support or to Leslie, she's given out her email address, leslie@bartonpublishing.com as well. Leave some comments if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. That helps us. We want more people to see this. We want to help more people, and we want to help people more. So I think that's it. What more can I say? Thanks, everybody. God bless you. Leslie, great job. And we'll be back next week, every Wednesday, 1 o'clock Central Time. We're here with Dr. Saunders. So we'll see you then. Thanks.
Bye-bye.